Hi. So this is a slideshow presentation that I gave at a meeting last night, part of a course organized by uh, Quakers Woodbrooke Learning Centre, and the course is about community resilience. We had three speakers, two talking about community resilience projects in Exmouth and Oakhampton, which were wonderful, just great. Lots of really lovely things going on with the community. And then I came in with my kind of slightly Tiggerish presentation about solar energy, which I had been working on and have improved a little bit. Uh, Unfortunately, we didn't record the event, and I kind of want to be able to share the slides with people. You'll see there's a link to the actual slides in the description to the video, but here's me talking through them because the slides aren't necessarily self-explanatory. So it works to see the slides and have my commentary. I am going to share the slides and then start going through them. Here they are. And I need to hit that button. Here we go. So, so this was yesterday. I'm talking on the 16th of April, and this was yesterday evening. Uh, and the course is Resilient Communities, and the evening was about empowering local initiatives. And I said I'm splitting the talk into three here. One is a bit of background on the learning journey that I have been on within the community in Bristol on solar. And then the latest one presentation that we put together for a bid. And part of this talk is about really about wanting to make it easier for community groups to get funding for rooftop solar projects. At the moment, community groups tend to get funding for wind turbines and for solar farms and for solar on large community buildings. And we think that by far the biggest opportunity is rooftop solar. But we had some challenges with applying for funding. So this is about how to handle funding applications, or rather how funding applications or people with funding could work with community groups to produce really good results. And then then the third section is about things that developments that have happened since this application. So here we go. Oh yeah, Bristol has a population of 450,000 and a 14 billion economy, and we spend 870 million a year. So imagine what could happen if we put solar on all the roofs and cut all the energy bills by a third. And not just in Bristol, but across the whole country. That's a big opportunity. Learning journey. So the government announced a feed-in tariff program in 2010. I think maybe it started in 2010, not 2011. It took us a while to figure out there was an opportunity and to make things happen. And the idea was to bootstrap the economy. The governments were paying people more than a unit of electricity costs to put solar on roofs uh, and do other things with renewable energy. It was fantastic. And then we did three more projects. But this is Hamilton House, the roof of it. And as you can see, it's a little bit cluttered. There's a lift shaft in the middle of the roof, and there's um, refrigerator units for air conditioning dotted around over the roof. So the panels aren't very well arrayed, but the room was big enough for 40 kilowatts of solar. And this became our learning journey. We worked with the owner of Hamilton House, Martin Conley, who was a wonderful sponsor. And in 2011, we arranged to put solar on the roof, 40 kilowatts, which ended up half being owned by Bristol Power Co-op and half being owned by Bristol Energy Co-op. So there were two community groups shared, and this was the first installation for either of them. And immediately, the next year, we went straight into wanting to put solar on ordinary people's roofs to prove that it was possible and to directly do something about fuel poverty, not set up a fund and have a community surplus and buy things for community groups, football shirts, and so on, but directly give people cheaper energy. And so we set about recruiting people in Lockleys. And over the course of 2 years, we did a demonstration project using feed-in tariffs to pay for the solar and giving the free electricity to the people in the houses. And we had a very simple message. Oh, yeah. We, when we announced the project, we were lucky enough to get it got front page on the Bristol Post, which was a wonderful boost for the project. But most people came from flyers distributed around the community. People came to events. We talked them through what we planned to do, that they would get solar on their roofs for free, wouldn't cost them a penny, and that they would get solar energy for nothing. And those solar panels are still there working, giving people free electricity. So we proved the concept. And we made some learnings. These are the learnings. Reading from left to right, top to bottom. The first thing is the cost of solar was coming down exponentially. When we started, solar, I had a buddy in Bridport. Bridport? No. Paynton, Torbay, who had put solar on his roof, and he'd spent £12,000 to put 2.2 kilowatts of solar on a roof. Brilliant. And he got a community grant to help him do that. But solar was very expensive and the cost was coming down. We put the solar on Hamilton House roof, 40 kilowatts of solar for project cost 120,000 all told. So it's £3,000 a kilowatt installed and project managed. And the cost was coming down. But the feed-in tariff was coming down. In 2011, the government immediately halved the feed-in tariff. They realized they were paying people far too much as an incentive, and people were taking up the incentive. Their funding was going to run out. So they halved the feed-in tariff in 2011. But if you look at our graph below, the third one, bottom left, you see that every time you invested £1 million in solar on roofs, you could get an income that was well over £1 million back from just the feed-in tariff. So the feed-in tariff was more than enough to pay for the cost of the solar panels. In 2011, the return was fantastic. You invest £1 million, you got £3 million back. Much less in 2012, but still an average about £2 million for every million invested. The real interesting thing, if you ignore those three now and look at the bottom right, you'll see that the actual amount of electricity you get for investing £1 million in solar over 20, 30 years is going up steadily, exponentially. And so in 2011, you could get your money back just from the electricity. By 2015, you could get a good return. So we were thinking you don't need a feed-in tariff, and that was good because feed-in tariffs were ending. Here's the other learning. We found a graph in Wikipedia, growth of photovoltaics, put together by a futurologist, a futurist, Ramez Naam at Microsoft. And he was showing that solar is growing exponentially. In the amount of solar deployed around the world as the cost came down. As the amount doubled, then the cost came down by 20% or something like that. Something like the Moore's law. It's a learning curve law. There's a name for this one. I've forgotten it. But that's what was happening. And so I put this, as we were learning, I found this graph in 2017, added a 2018 dot to it. And I thought, well, what if this just keeps going? How long before we've got enough solar to power the whole world? You know, how much energy do we use? When does this line cross that? So I did the obvious thing. I thought this was really obvious. I just extended the graph, and I extended it to the point where the lines, roughly speaking, crossed over world electricity generation or world total energy consumption. Actually, they're not straight lines, they're both going up a bit. But total world energy consumption is coming down as world electricity generation goes up, funnily enough, because we're not digging fossil fuels out of the ground and paying for it. We're just generating electricity that we need. But look, this isn't about can we get to carbon neutral by 2050? If you look at what's happening with solar, not what we've got to tell the government to do, but what's actually happening year on year growth, those two lines are crossing in 2032, not 2050. So we've got people saying, wouldn't it be great if we could be carbon neutral by 2030? And it looks as though we would be doing that by solar alone in 2032. And what's happening is solar is doubling every 3 years. That's what you're seeing. But something else is doubling every 3 years, and that's wind energy. And so wind energy and solar energy are competing to provide all the world's electricity. And they're both doubling every 3 years. So they've only got to get to halfway, which will logically be 3 years earlier. 3 years earlier than 2032 is 2029. So I'm predicting, without, I think, any great fear of being contradicted, that just by what's happening with technology and natural growth curves, we are going to have a world that is pretty much carbon neutral by 2030, which is great. But still got to make it happen. And so we planned another project which was going to work without feed-in tariffs. And the idea was, I wrote some discussion papers, and friends at Low Carbon Gordana picked them up, said, could this work? Let's do a feasibility study. They funded a little bit of work, and we played around with some numbers and some ideas, and met up with our friends in Lockleys and proposed to put a solar farm across 300 roofs in Lockleys, working with Lockleys Neighbourhood Trust, Low Carbon Gordana, and others. With a very simple message. We called it Lockleys Love Solar. Put on roofs for free, you get a cheaper energy bill. And then we found a group called Power to Change, who had a project called Next Generation Energy, and they were offering £100,000 grants. And they brought together a cohort of 10 projects, all doing different things for this Next Generation Energy project. And they brought together a wonderful group of consultants to help the community groups develop the projects. Fantastic. So Lockleys Loves Solar with Lockleys Neighbourhood Trust and Low Carbon Gordana were working with these consultants and with Bristol Energy Company, who were our chosen energy company to help us handle the billing. So people's energy bills will just say, oh, here's your energy bill. You had some solar energy, you got that at a discount. Brilliant. We worked with them. They were incredibly helpful. And the project was going great until COVID kicked in, March 2020. And when COVID kicked in, Bristol City Council said, we think we made a mistake with Bristol Energy. We're losing money. We're not sure we're ever going to make a profit. And they shut down Bristol Energy. So for two different reasons, the project died. Very unfortunate, very sad. But you keep going. And what we did was working with SERA, the Socialist Environmental Research Association. We carried on looking at community energy, looking towards the point after COVID when we would be able to bring this idea back up. And we would do steady research sponsored by SERA. And we reported back to local Quaker groups. We had a series of Quaker talks that we set up during COVID. And I gave a little Quaker talk every so often about how we're progressing with our research on energy. These are three of the talks. Is there an age of energy abundance coming? We were saying in 2023. and 2024, energy snakes and ladders, the ups and downs, the challenges, and the things that are making it possible. And then this year, how can we unlock community energy at scale? Because we were starting to do this. And this presentation, you can see Centrica Business Solutions, top right, they had a grant program called Energy for Tomorrow. And we, Iris Partridge and myself, had set up a resilience network by this time at the beginning of 2024. And we applied for, and its project, Bristol Solar Challenge, and we applied for a grant. And this is some of our presentation. Why are we here? Why are we presenting to you? Because this is Bristol, and the darker the blue, the more people are in. These are areas of significant social deprivation, poverty. You've got the rich core of the city surrounded by a lot of former council estates where the people haven't got so much money. And we proposed to do something about it. And the point is, if you've got money, you can tackle challenges. But if you haven't got money, a challenge like a flood or a big storm or a power cut or COVID or a war, doubling energy bills, all of these things hurt ordinary people badly. And we're not at the moment. We are transitioning to a new energy economy, but it's not by any means just at the moment. A lot of people aren't able to buy themselves out of a crisis, so we decided to do something about it. And that was the start of our presentation. We want to do something. Whoops. Sorry, come back to that. Went forward. Here we go. This is a mindset map. Part of what we're looking at is a real climate crisis that's going to make lives very difficult for people. And that's part of our mindset for ResNet, that we need to make it possible for communities to tackle a climate crisis and the challenges it's going to throw up. But also there is a energy revolution happening to cheaper, cleaner energy, which could benefit everybody. And we wanted to make that available to the people who are going to be worst impacted by climate change, the people who haven't got flexibility and resources. So we want to tackle energy and community resilience. We want to create carbon zero neighborhoods that create all their own energy and a just transition. And we created a project, Bristol Solar Challenge, simple pitch, cheaper energy without upfront cost for solar PV. So the idea is to make it solar roofs and storage available to people, starting with a pilot project, 100 homes in 2025. That's this year. And our logo for ResNet, as we were planning it, we were thinking of what we're trying to bring together, what the puzzle is. And we're tackling the problem of climate resilience. We're bringing together member community centres. We want community centres are the first responders. In a cold snap, we opened up our community centres and made them warm places for people so that even though energy prices were going up, you didn't have to die of hypothermia. So warm places, places with power, places with food and soup. We wanted to bring together community centres as the base from which we put solar on people's roofs. And we need to bring together the people who've got the knowledge. Who's got the knowledge to do this? The community energy groups, lawyers and so on. We obviously have to communicate what we're doing and create resources and links to people. And then we create a flagship project that's going to put solar on the roofs, Bristol Solar Challenge. We had 10 minutes to present this. We were speaking much faster. And the first thing we did was we managed to raise some money. We applied for grants to 2 different community energy funds, a national fund set up by Department for, Energy Security and Net Zero, and one from Bristol City Leap Fund, and we got 45,000 that we spent last year working with, oh yeah, the first thing we did was we put up a website so that people would get an idea of what we're doing. You can see that that's at resnet.org.uk. Lots of useful information about the project and very helpful when we started to be able to show people what we were doing. Have a look at our website. And we worked, so the bits of the puzzle you've got to bring together. We need legal agreements between a co-op that we're going to form and the householder, so that the co-op will finance the solar and the householder has the right to use it. We had to figure out what the numbers looked like, how much we could charge for the electricity or how little we could charge for the electricity, and how quickly we could pay off the finance. Who would do the energy billing? We have to talk with the grid and lots more. And we found local groups, TLT, our solicitors we'd worked before on other projects, and we started working with them about whether we're going to use a roof lease or some kind of consumer license for the solar. Energy Local, I'll show you a slide on them in a bit, but they have already got a solution for handling the billing. We work with Future Leap around modelling the finance, and we work with Bristol Energy Co-op, Bristol Energy Network, the City Council, and Community Energy England, and some old friends. It turned out that I'd got a buddy who was a director of an innovative solar installers based in Brighouse, and they were figuring out how to finance energy at scale, and they had already done experiments with solar, and not experiments, they got working intellectual property on optimizing the use of solar and batteries, even balancing the grid. And they had worked with this and ground source heat pumps for heating, and also a new form of heating, low frequency infrared. And they'd got what we call an end-to-end finance model. They could arrange the finance for the solar and get the energy back through an energy bill. Very useful. That sort of was a commercial demonstration that what we were wanting to do was already viable. So we worked during last year. We held a technical meeting in October, and we submitted a feasibility study after that. And then we were talking to Centrica and saying, you know, we've done our feasibility study. We want to get into planning. We want to initially do a pilot study and show solar on roofs, some with heat, ground source heat, and some with low frequency infrared, and then scale up across the city. So our idea was 10 clusters of 10 using these two different technologies across the city, and to demonstrate that we could reduce energy bills across any neighborhood. And this would be the start of accelerating community solar energy take-up. How much room is there for solar on people's roofs? And we wanted to do this in a fair way, and doing smart things with sharing the energy between houses, not just giving you solar from your own roof. And we want that to feed into improving the energy efficiency of homes. And just to show the scale, the council, Bristol City Council, already had a one city climate strategy, and in their evidence base, they showed there was room for solar on 96,000 roofs across the city, including 80,000 domestic roofs, totaling space for 500 megawatts. That's a lot of solar. At the time, they thought that that would cost about 600 million. But the cost of solar has come down and the efficiency of panels has gone up. So there's room for more than 500 megawatts, and the cost wouldn't necessarily go up. This is exciting. There's room for a lot of solar on Bristol's roofs. And Centrica is asking, you know, what help do you want? And I stole this little bit from their website about Centrica Business Solutions. And we said, well, we want Centrica Community Solutions. And the sort of help you could give us is help us develop third-party billing, the billing model, help us with planning the business, help us with raising finance, help us with engaging the community. You've got customers. We'd like to talk to your customers about how we could put solar on their roofs. Help us with marketing. Help us contact the new energy company the government's setting up, and help us work with the network. And so we wanted a lot of help. And we were talking to 5 directors of the company. This is great, that these are these are people who really understand energy. They're directors of a huge energy company with 20 million customers in Europe. And we were talking straight to 5 directors, and they were evaluating us from the point of view of these criteria. Is it innovative? Is it going to have a social and environmental impact? How are we going to involve the community? How can Centrica help? What's the quality of the concept? And their feedback was great. They said it's a well-developed plan. We recognize it's scalable. And they told us the next day, it's scalable. It's very ambitious. It's a good concept. It's very complex. And yes, it's a commercial opportunity. And they said, we don't think it's right for energy for tomorrow. And your heart sinks. It needs to go in a different direction. And they said, we have a project. We've got a team working on energized futures. We want you to work with them on something similar. We want you to put you in with our European project. So we didn't get 100,000 straight away, but we are working with their energized futures project. So after all this, we held a community meeting at St. Anne's House in Brislington and brought together community groups and told them what our pitch is. You've heard a lot of complexity here about, organizing the billing and everything, but to an ordinary person, it's going to be free solar on your roof. It's not going to cost you anything. We're going to handle the risk as much as we can. The community is going to own it. It's going to look after it. You will own it. You'll be a member of the co-op that owns the solar on your roof. You're going to have shared batteries. So even if you're not at home during the day, your batteries will charge during the day and you'll have the use of the energy at night. Overall, we think we're going to lower bills by 30%. Join your co-op, which we are setting up this year. So that's our pitch. And here's here's a graphic. I fed this idea to ChatGPT and it said, oh, I can help you develop graphics. So here's a very first stab at it. You can see it can't even can't even spell properly, but it's the idea. We'll produce graphically nice materials for ordinary people to come to meetings to learn about this. And we started to think through the business plan. What's the journey? What's the learning journey from a householder curious about this to us putting solar on the roof? And there's a flow chart. What are the steps? We've got to plan this. And we've produced a technical chart. And there's a link to this in the, if you're watching this on YouTube, which you must be, then you'll find a link to this technical sheet underneath in the description. And so we're going about planning. We're talking to Zenergy. We're talking to Centrica and their Energized Futures team. We're talking to the grid, which used to be called Southwest Electricity Board. Then it became Western Power Distribution, and now it's National Grid Energy Distribution. And we're talking about P441. More on that in a moment. And we're talking to a project in Lancashire called Swillican. More on that in a moment. And we're talking to other projects as well. I'll mention some of them as we go. So this is what's happened since we were talking to Centrica. We're working with local energy to set up billing so that we will, in the first instance, be selling you electricity from your own roof, but hopefully we'll very quickly have an energy club where we're sharing that energy and the storage between households in an area, and we'll build on that. We're talking to Zenergy, who have now got a commercial offering for social housing. It's for housing associations, a fully funded end-to-end solar energy and heating solution. And that's the idea. You have solar on your roof, you have batteries in your garage or utility room, and you've got low frequency infrared. And they handle the finance for a housing association and they handle the billing. So the tenant's going to get cheaper electricity. The housing association gets a very well upgraded piece of housing, and it's financed. The housing association doesn't have to worry about it. It's great. Energized Futures, we're talking to Centrica about a project where we'll be looking at local microgrids, optimizing the use of energy within a substation area and sharing it between houses and handling the billing. And we're working with their local res project, which is a number of European community projects all working together in with local res. And we're talking with Centrica about applying for a strategic innovation fund grant, because what we're doing is a strategic shift in energy. And we want to, with them, develop these ideas for having local microgrids, not just electricity supplied into your area through a substation, but within a substation, energy being generated and shared in that area and used to power electric vehicles and even possibly exported as hydrogen. I don't talk about that here, but there'll be a talk on that soon. And we're talking to National Grid Energy Distribution, and they're talking about working with us, getting funding from a Network Innovation Allowance Fund. So that's exciting. And we're talking about netting with P441. P441 is Ofgem's proposed way of working with complex sites, basically more than one site in a substation area that's using or generating energy and allowing the energy to be shared between the sites that are generating and the sites using it without incurring network charges. And that's what makes it possible to have local virtual microgrids. And Swillycan, while we were doing this, we, through friends at the project that has done the wind turbine in Lawrence Weston, we heard they'd had an inquiry from Lancashire through actually Bristol Energy Network. And the Lancashire project wanted to do some solar farms and a wind turbine and some warm houses. And the wind turbine group couldn't do the whole thing, but we said, well, together we could do all of that. So we started talking to Swillycan, which has the same problem as Bristol. It's a small town and it's got areas of significant fuel poverty. And so we're talking about, we applied for some stage 2 funding to develop community power solutions in Avonmouth, to develop a wind turbine, and us to help them with Bristol Energy Co-op develop a solar farm and 300 units, warm solar homes with heating and shared solar. And then we found this great project. This is in Hackney. And this is proof that the idea really does work. Hackney have been working with a company called Energy Evolution, something like that. You can find it on the Hackney website, actually. And what they're doing is they're putting solar panels on the roofs of 18 apartment blocks, and the energy is going to be shared amongst 800 apartments. There's a megawatt of solar. It's costing 2 million, and people are getting an average of 1.25 kilowatts a flat, but the energy is going to be shared and used. But there isn't any shared storage because 1.2 kilowatts isn't much energy. It'll all get used during the day, and people will save on average 15%. We want to do better than that, but Hackney is a great project. It shows that a council can do this. And so we're starting to talk to some councils about doing this. It confirms the concept. It confirms the economics of solar and the business and billing models. Coming to the end. Oh, this is great. This is a hoot. We just found in Germany, there is a thing, and it's balcony power stations, Balkonkraftwerke, balcony power stations. 500,000 homes in Germany have got balcony power. There's more solar power on balconies in Germany than the sum total of everything that community groups have done in the UK already. And where do you get it? You go to Aldi. You go to Aldi and you pick up 4 solar panels and a battery and an inverter and some wiring and some clips to clip it to your balcony, and you plug it into the mains, 3-pin plug. You don't have to have an MCS certified installer, and you're getting it. Let's see what translated. Two-sided balcony power. It's two-sided solar panels. Whichever side the light's coming, you're making power. And this kit is 1.78 kilowatts of solar with an 800-watt inverter and 2.4 kilowatt hours of storage. And it actually works out. It's £600 a kilowatt. Remember when I was showing you that we put solar on Hamilton House for £3,000 a kilowatt? The price for do-it-yourself solar balconies is £600 a kilowatt. Price is coming down. It means we can do it anywhere. And the Council for the Preservation of Rural England have done an audit of roof space, and they said, before you go putting solar all over our farms and fields and spoiling the countryside, there's room for 50 gigawatts of solar on our roofs. 50 gigawatts is 25% more than the country uses at midday, total power. So there's room for more solar on our roofs than we use at midday on any sunny day. That's incredible. And how do we work with climate change? We're going to have a whole program on this. The One City Climate Strategy is, at the moment, it's 400 kilotons, 400,000 tons of carbon emissions a year short of achieving the target of getting to net zero by 2030. If we put solar on all the roofs that we could in Bristol, we'd have more electricity than we need. But if we used that to power electric cars, that would also displace petrol and other, and we would it would cut the gap. We would save more than 400 kilotons. So a solar project done at scale in Bristol, done at the full scale, can get Bristol to net zero by 2030. So that's worth thinking about. And we will achieve a just transition. I'm not going to go through the details. You know what a just transition means. It means that everybody benefits. We help individuals. We make warm homes for everyone. Everybody gets treated fairly. We make a better economy. We introduce cheaper energy. And instead of bonuses for power companies, we turn it into lower costs for everybody. And the day before yesterday, one of my favorite bloggers, a guy called Dave Borlace, who runs a blog called Just Have a Think, announced a report showing rooftop solar PV is the biggest climate mitigation technology. If you want to tackle climate change, the place to start is rooftop solar. And as you have already seen, we can give you rooftop solar while cutting your energy bill. So it makes economic sense to do this. I just thought I'd show you a little bit about the other side of this, electric cars. At the moment, electric cars are coming along nicely, right? But they seem a bit expensive, you know. Vauxhall Grandland, very nice new electric car, but it's like 35 grand. And the Mini Cooper is lovely, but it's 26,000. Are the costs ever going to come down? This is a Chinese electric car, which looks just fine to me. And it's $13,590, which turns out to be 10,000 quid. So for 10,000 quid, you can get an electric car. That's a lot cheaper than other cars. So electric cars are going to be cheaper than ordinary cars, and the features are going to improve. How about this? Oh, yeah. Well, isn't that incredible? Isn't that amazing? Well, I don't, that's BYD, Build Your Dream. They translated their company name. And what is their chief exec saying? He's saying you're going to be able to refill one of their cars just as fast as you can refill a petrol car. Why? Because it's got 1,000 volt electricity system and it's going to charge at a megawatt. The plug you're going to put in the car is a megawatt. Unbelievable. The power of 33 electric kettles going into your car at once. Um, that's 1,000 volts all round. So this is the future being assembled right now in China. And so there you are. Free solar and storage and electric vehicles in community car clubs, shared energy for everybody. We've got the possibility to do this within just the next few years. We want to do a pilot this year and show it's possible. And then in 2026, 27, 28, 29, bring this to everybody in Bristol and across the country as we accelerate towards the line crossing, the amount of solar and wind being generated being equal to our power consumption, and therefore us having achieved net zero. Thanks, everybody. There's contact details and things like that in the link under this video, and I went over way longer than we had 10 minutes to present this to Centrica, but I wanted to go through it. That's our presentation. It will improve over the year. By the end of the year, we hope we will have engaged with community groups and we'll be ready to put solar on roofs, show this is possible, and then make a big splash across the whole country. Thank you very much. Stop sharing and sign off. Thanks.